Union Minister Rajiv Chandrasekhar has called out former Twitter CEO, rubbishing his claims on the farmers' protest. This is an outright, and I'm quoting from the tweet here, this is an outright lie by Jack Dorsey, perhaps in an attempt to brush out that very dubious period of Twitter's history. Facts and truth of Twitter under Dorsey and his team were in repeated and continuous violations of India's laws. Nobody went to jail, nor was Twitter shut down. Dorsey's Twitter regime had a problem accepting the sovereignty of Indian law. This is a tweet that's come in from Union Minister Rajiv Chandrasekhar, essentially lashing out at the former Twitter CEO, Jack Dorsey. Again, this is in connection with the farmers' protests. He's rubbishing his claims on the farmers' protests, saying that this is an outright lie by Jack, perhaps an attempt to brush out that very dubious period of Twitter's history. Now, to get us more details on the significance and to get us more context on this, we're crossing over to our senior editor, Pallavi Ghosh. Pallavi, tell us more about what has really prompted the union minister to lash out at the Twitter CEO, former.
See, that is because the former CEO has actually given an interview. In that interview has alleged that the Modi government tried to crush, if you remember, that farmers' protest which took place in Haryana and Punjab. And it was actually done on the social media space. And all those who were supporting the farmers' agitation, their Twitter accounts were either suspended or they were withheld. This has been completely outrightly rejected by the government. And we also have the IT Minister, Rajiv Chandrasekhar, making that point very strongly, that this is absolutely not true. The government did not do any such thing. It did not control the Twitter space. In fact, it's Twitter which has always been accused of its lopsided platform it has offered. And if you remember, that's one of the main points which Elon Musk had also made when he had taken charge by saying that, I'm going to make Twitter a space, an equal space for all.
How do you think this is likely to escalate between the government and, let's say, also present Twitter administration as well? Do you think that's likely to see a flashpoint there or no?
It's going to be interesting, all right, to see whether Elon Musk really comes out with a statement, because I remember when he took charge, and remember it was also in the backdrop of the Donald Trump narrative. Elon Musk had said that unfortunately Twitter has become a victim of one particular political narrative or ideology. We cannot allow this to, be that. In fact, one of the main arguments he gave in favor of removing the blue tick or the legacy tick he's talking about is that Twitter should be accessible to all. You pay for it, you get it, and therefore anyone who wants to get the blue tick mark will just have to pay for it. You're not entitled. You don't have a legacy to it. So one should not feel privileged to be on Twitter. It's a platform which is meant for all. So I think the point which went across was that Twitter, one, cannot become a space for any kind of a provocative narrative where it can actually stoke trouble or violence. Second, it cannot, of course, be used for only one particular point of view. And our government has been in sync with that. Whenever they've been meeting with Twitter representatives, they've said that, it's a hugely popular platform. And India wants all social media platforms to be accessible to all. And, they have space. But freedom of expression also does not mean that our national security can be compromised. And in this case, Rajiv Chandrasekhar has made it very clear when he has said that it is absolutely baseless allegations. There was no clampdown which was happening from the Modi government.
I'm wondering if this could maybe prompt some action to be taken by the centre when it comes to Twitter and what's been said by the union minister as well. Do you think that's something which we could see? Because we're talking, in the tweet, we're talking about continuous violations of India's laws.
See, the fact also remains is that not just the government representatives, but even the Parliament Committee on IT has regularly been meeting representatives of Twitter or WhatsApp or Facebook, so on and so forth. And every time that meeting has taken place, both the points of view have been heard. The social media platforms have often raised concerns over whether this should be seen as an obstructive action against them. But the government has always reassured them that, one, of course, you have a freedom. Social media platforms cannot be curtailed because of the way they work. But more importantly, India is a sensitive country. I mean, India has different cultures, different religions, castes, and so on and so forth. You cannot use a random and unchecked use of the Twitter or the social media space, which can lead to provocation, which can be provocative. That's the kind of guideline. In fact, the government has come out with guidelines for the social media platforms. That's the kind of guideline which the government issues is you have a freedom of expression, yes, but at the same time, it should be in sync with the laws of the land. Here, I think it's important to point out that Rajiv Chandrasekhar has made it very clear. There was no clampdown. And this is an absolutely wrong narrative. There was one political narrative which was being pushed, and the government felt in some cases that the social media timeline was being misused, and therefore that's the only kind of an indication which went in from the government that perhaps these social media timelines should rein in, or perhaps should actually monitor the kind of tweets or posts which were going out on these platforms.
Pallavi, thank you so much for those important details, but please do stay with us. Right now, we're also being joined in by Mr. Shahzad Poonawala of the BJP. Mr. Poonawala, thank you so much for speaking to CNN News 18. What we're covering right now is a breaking development. This is about Union Minister Rajiv Chandrasekhar's response to the former Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey, because in a recent interview, Dorsey had said, and I quote, "During the farmers' protest, the Modi-led government pressurized us and said we will shut down your offices, raid your employees' homes, which they did if you didn't follow suit." What do you have to say in response?
First of all, I think let's put out some facts in the public domain. The fact is that Twitter was constantly violating laws of this country right from 2020 onwards. Secondly, nobody penalized them, put them in jail, etc. Thirdly, they are an intermediary. The law on intermediaries is very clear. If you want to be an editor, the law that applies to CNN News 18 is different from the law that applies to a social media platform like Twitter. If you want the powers of CNN News 18 to editorialize, then you have to face the responsibilities that CNN News 18 carries with it. But you want the powers of a super editor, but you don't want the obligations of that. That's not permissible under the IT Act. And therefore, in view of all of this, the guidelines were implemented. And those guidelines make it very clear for every social media platform. Some comply and some think that they're above Indian law. And they do the same. They apply the laws of United States. They will have the laws of European Union applied on them. But they don't want the Indian laws to be applied. Do they think that just because they have a white man complex, that we should be following their diktats and should allow them to have a free run against the constitution of this country? And then, few years later, they go and start preaching without any facts to the entire world on a foreign platform, and we should buy whatever allegations they make wholesale. So I think that let's put the facts out and let's have some tough questions asked of the former Twitter boss, Mr. Dorsey, that is this a fact or not, that Twitter was constantly violating laws. He's telling who was put in jail or was Twitter shut down from 2020 onwards. So this kind of narrative, which is one-sided, only to suit a particular ecosystem, I understand the need and the compulsion of certain political parties to amplify it. But the fact is that this is the stand that even previous governments have taken. We can't compromise on some social media platform saying that they will not run as per the law and constitution of this country.
So then on that note, is it possible that this could escalate between the centre then and even with the Twitter's current administration? I mean, it really depends on what Musk has to say about it in response. But could we see action taken on previous statements that Twitter has made?
Look, I think it's very clear. There is a infrastructure now in place which allows for social media platforms to operate. That is the infrastructure that everyone has to follow. And it is very clear the guidelines have to be followed by one and all. Now, it is upon them. If they want to follow it, they enjoy the protections of Section 79 of the IT Act. If they don't, they lose the immunity of Section 79. It's as simple as that.
Now, as you mentioned, you understand the need of political parties to really push out the words that Dorsey had said in his interview. I'm looking at a tweet from the National President of the Indian Youth Congress, Srinivas BV, who has again tweeted out that specific portion and then said that this is the mother of democracy, unfiltered. What do you want to say to these political parties that are pushing out the statement of Dorsey?
Look, I'm not surprised with the Congress party. The Congress party can perhaps pick up even an endorsement from the Global Times or from Pakistan in order to score a brownie point against the current government. So that is the state of the Congress party. But having said that, Mr. Dorsey once held a placard called Brahmin Patriarchy. Last I checked, Rahul Gandhi was tom-tomming about his Brahminical credentials being a call Brahmin, Ucha Koti ka Brahmin, who has a genu as per Mr. Surjewala. I guess Mr. Srinivas should be asked, does he endorse Brahmin patriarchy as a notion that Mr. Dorsey speaks, because he's endorsing all the statements that come out of his mouth. So perhaps Mr. Srinivas can tell us whether he endorses the Brahmin patriarchal comment, and perhaps that applies to his leader.